session off by highlighting the importance of clean water right in his inaugural address. He stated clean water is essential to Vermont's quality of life, economic vitality, and more, and we agree, and I think everyone in this room came out today because we agree. So his administration is working hard on a clean water initiative, and I want to give him the opportunity to speak to us about that this morning. Thanks for being here, Governor.
Hey, thank you so much, Lauren. Thanks. Thank you all. Hey, thanks so much. It's so exciting to have this many Vermonters show up to advocate for clean water and for the bill that's currently moving through this building. Now, I'm honored to be here with not only my team, I know you're going to hear from Secretary Ross from Ag shortly, but also I've got to say to all of you that have been working so hard in the trenches, thank you for the work that you've done. And we know we have an opportunity right now to finally turn back the extraordinary damage that we've been doing to waterways, to our most precious resources in the state. And the time is now to act. Anyone who thinks that we're not losing the battle for clean water in Vermont is simply not going to our lakes and our streams in the summertime when blue-green algae is not only making too many of our waterways places where you would never want to swim, but also making them places where you wouldn't want to sleep next to them or have a picnic next to them because they stink so bad. And one thing that separates us from the other 49 states, why we care so much about being Vermonters, is because of our quality of life. Because we believe fundamentally, regardless of party, that it's our obligation to leave our natural resources in better shape, cleaner, more pristine than the way we found them. And we are not doing that today. So I am bound and determined as governor to not leave this session, not next session, but this session, without a bill that will, in my view, be the biggest effort yet in our state's history to make the down payment on cleaning up our waterways to ensure that future generations have a much cleaner lake than the one we have today. I want to say to the skeptics who say, we've heard this from politicians before. We have many examples of that, including most recent Clean and Clear. But not much has changed. Here's the good news. We actually now have the data, real data, that can for the first time tell us where the top challenges that we face are. And we're going to go into the 3 sectors that we must clean up. And you know what they are. One is runoff from impervious surfaces. That means development in plain English. Parking lots, rooftops that do not absorb water. The second is working together with our municipalities and state transportation agency to stop the terrible erosion challenges that we're facing, where natural phosphorus gets drawn into our waters because we don't properly ditch and we don't properly deal with erosion. And the third major polluter we all know is agriculture. Farmers who want to do the right thing, but who either haven't had the resources or the training to get it right. The good news is this time we can tell you in all of those sectors where the most egregious challenges are, and we're going to, with the resources in the Clean Water Fund, go after those first so that we can get the biggest bang for our buck in the beginning and work down from there. Now, many Vermonters say to me, well, Governor, you know, your plan's not perfect. We think you should do this or do that. And I'm saying, listen, we're all ears. We don't know if our plan's perfect either. Our job in this legislative session is to get perfection before it gets to my desk. So we want your ideas. But saying no is not an option. find as I go around Vermont and I say, raise your hand if you're for dirty water. No, raise your hand. I haven't had too many hands go up. But I have a lot of hands going up right now when we say, okay, we're all for clean water, but if you don't want to pay for it, raise your hand. Guess what? We're getting a lot more hands on that one than we are raise your hand if you're for dirty water. We will not solve this problem if we're not willing to raise the resources necessary to put the people on the ground to work together with the major three sectors that we're challenging, that are our challenges, to get this right. We just won't. So what I'm asking you to do as you talk to legislators today is not only tell them that clean water is important, they get that. Not only tell them that you're with them, you're going to have their backs, but tell them that funding, adequate funding, is critical to the solution. I want to give you examples of what I mean by that. I proposed in my inaugural address in January a budget that funds the Clean Water Fund from all sectors that are going to be necessary to bring on board. What are they? Federal money, our congressional delegations, Senator Leahy, Senator Sanders, Congressman Welch, have been extraordinary in their commitment to clean water and to getting us money when we need it. We need more of that. And we're working together with the feds. We've already brought in how many million, Chuck? Over 60. 62, 63 million. So we're making real progress there. Second, private sector fund. We're going to need help from the business community and from Vermonters that can afford it. I'm really excited that I was able to work together with Green Mountain to get our first $5 million commitment from one of Vermont's businesses. We've got more work to do there. But finally, all of us. And we put together a proposal that raises the money necessary to get this job done. We also said, if, in fact, after we work with you, after we give you the resources, you're not willing to clean up your commitment, your pollution, your adverse impact on our waterways, we're going to hold you accountable. And I was a little discouraged when one of those examples, I suggested that if you are not complying with state water requirements, good practices, right practices, after we've worked with you, after we've done the training, after you're giving the resources, and you're still refusing, you shouldn't be eligible for the current use program, which is all other Vermonters helping you to pay your property taxes. Well, you know, one of the committees thought that wasn't fair, and they took it out. I'm like, really? You know, in the forestry program, if you go clear cut 100 acres of land against your forestry practices, against the natural resource plan of the state of Vermont, guess what happens? You no longer are eligible for the current use program until you mitigate the damage you did. Well, why should it be any different for anyone else in the current use program? So my point is, as you walk around this legislature, talking to legislators, encourage them to make some tough decisions. Because if we leave here with a toothless bill, we'll be right back where we were. More blue-green algae. More water that stinks so bad you don't want to be next to it in the summertime. And more generations, future generations of Vermonters asking the tough questions in 10, 15 years. How come you all didn't have the courage, didn't have the gumption to clean this up a long time ago? This problem will not get better with time. I just want to close by saying this. There are two ways that we're going to do this. Our way, the Vermont way, which is the bill that we put forward, or the EPA way. There is no third option. A lot of folks don't get that. In other words, we are in a negotiation with the EPA. It's a friendly one, where we've got to show them that our plan actually gets results, that we're all committed to this together as a state and a family, and if they feel that we don't come up with a plan that actually cleans up our waterways, they're going to say, we're going to do it our way. And their way makes no sense, because since the Federal Clean Water Act hasn't been amended in God knows how long, their only tool is to require us to swap out every single wastewater treatment plant in Vermont for hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. But we know that those treatment plants contribute about 3% of our challenge of polluted waters in Vermont. So are we going to trade 3% for 97%? Doing this the Vermont way and getting it right, or doing it the EPA way, and frankly, not getting the progress that we need to get? So let's work together in the next couple of months to get this right, to have the courage to clean up our waterways, to finally address an issue that has been pushed aside, kicked under the table, because we could not agree that we were all going to pay for this one together. Thank you so much for all you're doing. Let's get
Hey, Governor, don't go too far because I'm riding with you to the next event.
I know, and I'm not talking about it. If we had the heat in this room, it might actually,
You might get some
the staff
sap.
might
Yeah,
run.
yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Chuck Ross. I'm the Secretary of the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. And I just want to thank the Governor for the privilege and opportunity to serve in this position at this time in Vermont and be able to work on this particular issue. As a Vermont boy, I have witnessed the changes in our waters, particularly Lake Champlain. I had the chance to tour Missisquoi Bay this last August at the height of its bloom. The surface of Missisquoi Bay is 6% of the surface of Lake Champlain. And when I traveled over that bay in a motorboat, a lot nicer than mine, we covered much of that bay, and there wasn't a single part of that bay where the wake of that motorboat didn't roll green. When we were at the mouth of the Rock River, we saw coagulated chunks of blue-green algae half the size of my fist, 3/4 of a mile from a Vermont-based business that relies upon clean water. So if people wonder whether that's a problem, they should have been there, and I wish many of us could have been. Unfortunately, many of us have already seen that. And that was underscored for me as a Vermont boy who's grown up on Lake Champlain when I went down to my part of the lake, the deep water part of the lake, about a week later, and I looked off across the lake in my not quite so powerful motorboat, and I saw something that I couldn't understand that was on the surface of the water. And so my family and I and our friends motored over there, and what we discovered was a bank of blue-green algae floating in a deeper part of the lake just south of Westwood. And that underscored for me that this lake is different than it was when I was a boy catching frogs along its shores and catching perch and in and out of the water all day long, all over the part of the lake that I live. So I'm here to say a couple of things. First, I want to thank all of you that are in this room and beyond for recognizing the importance of clean water in the state of Vermont, not only as a statewide resource, but as a personal, individual resource that touches all of us, is important to all of us. And I want to thank you for being advocates for our clean water, because it is a precious resource and one that we depend on in so many ways. And most importantly, in my role as the Secretary, I want to thank you all for moving beyond the finger pointing and being part of a conversation around solutions. The easy thing to do is look at somebody else and say, this is your fault and you need to do something about it. The harder thing to do is recognize we're all part of the same community and work together to help one another get the job done right. This historically, I think we can say, as a state writ large, all of us in the legislative process, in the advocacy world, and our roles as citizens, have made promises about water quality and elevated our expectations for years. But we, as a state writ large, all those same people and organizations I just referred to, have promised good water quality, but have under-resourced those promises. I'm going to share the one that I confronted when I came into the agency. I came in as a secretary in 2011, and the first conversation I had before I drew a paycheck was David Mears about water quality. I've had conversations every day in my job about water quality since that day, and when I walked into the agency, I recognized that we had 4 people to inspect, monitor, work with the 7,300 farms in the state of Vermont as defined by the USDA. Or let's cut that in half and just call 4,000 farms. 4 people, those 4 people are dedicated to LFOs and MFOs, large farm operations and medium farm operations. And we had nobody allocated to the Agency of Agriculture, to the Agency of Natural Resources, our partner here, Trey Martin, to talk about the AAPs when they were passed back in the mid-90s, or to work on small farm operations in 2011. That is an example of under-resourcing the promises and expectations for clean water that we've all been a part of. But I'm proud to say I'm a part of the Shumlin administration, following the lead of our governor who just left, in proposing a historic initiative to address clean water in our state. It's built upon 3 concepts: stewardship, partnership, and accountability. We all must participate in all 3 of those concepts. We all must practice better stewardship. We all must collaborate and partner to amplify our individual and our collective efforts. And we all must help and hold each other accountable for our action, our outcomes, and our progress. And this commitment around these concepts is coupled with a historic compilation of resources that the governor alluded to. A historic, huge sum of resources that we are putting together in this proposal that's in part represented by House Bill 35 and the TMDL plan the governor submitted to the EPA. This is going to require all of us to make our contributions, all of us to participate, because this has to be an all-in effort. Everybody in. All people, all sectors, all players, all stakeholders. We have to change the culture and adopt a new one around water quality, reflecting our commitments to stewardship, partnership, and accountability. And I'll tell you, as a Secretary of Agriculture, who works with the Vermont ag community all the time, and my staff, whom are in this room, who work with them every single day, I'm pleased to recognize the proactive commitment of the agriculture community to addressing this challenge. From farmers to farm organizations, to businesses that serve the agriculture community, to the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, to the USDA. The stakeholders in all those groups are committed and interested in making a contribution and being part of the solution. That is enormously significant. I've had leaders in the farm community say, show us the way, we want to contribute. They're willing to put their money where their mouth is and be part of the solution, not only in the fees and proposals that are being put forth in this building, but in the practices they orchestrate and operate every day on their farms. So the community of agriculture is on board. And I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of our Vermonters who are part of that community. And with the help of our governor and his leadership, our congressional delegation that has been stupendous, the legislature in this building who has been urging and pushing on this issue for years, but most importantly, and I want to underscore, most importantly, the people of the state of Vermont, the individual citizens that comprise the society that we're a part of. I want to ask all of those people to be part of this partnership with the ag community as one of those partners to take this issue on to improve the waters of the state of Vermont. And as the governor said, in the Vermont way, not the EPA way, not because somebody's telling us to do it, because we know we should do it, and we're going to figure out how to do it as Vermonters in a way that works for all of us. Thank you very much.
thank you to Secretary Ross very much. And my name is Trey Martin. I'm the Deputy Secretary of the Agency of Natural Resources. And so first, thank you for that lovely speech, and thank you to the Governor. But mostly, I want to thank you all for being here today. I'm deeply honored to get to talk to you this morning about clean water and about the work that we've been doing, the work that we're doing with the Agency of Agriculture and with this administration. And I guess I want to start by saying that we're in an extraordinary place and an extraordinary time right now. To be where we are during this legislative session, with this governor having made the commitment that he's made to make this a top administration priority. To be able to work with the Agency of Agriculture, where it's their top priority to get clean water right. Well, you know that it's a top priority of the Agency of Natural Resources, but it has been for a long time. Having this partnership is something new, it's something different, and it really is something that I want all of you to take a moment just to reflect upon and to get that this is a very different place than we've ever been on clean water in the state of Vermont. And I think it's worth beginning by noting that. But I also wanted to, when I talked to Lauren and Kim about what to say to you all today, I've been trying to think about what it is that I could tell you that would be helpful. Because you did know that we are in this extraordinary place, and you know that this legislation is moving, you know that we've asked for the resources to do this. So what else could I tell you that would be helpful this morning? And so I thought I'd make sort of three main points that you maybe could take out of here today. The first is that this is a long journey. It's not just the legislative session seems to take it exists in like Narnia time. It's not even real. It seems like a long way to May right now to me. But if we're going to get clean water right in Vermont, we need to be ready for generations. It's not just Lake Champlain. Water's all across this state. Almost every basin in this state has impaired waterways, whether it's Lake Memphremagog, the Connecticut River, the stormwater impaired brooks throughout the state. I think one of my basin planners told me that there's really only one basin in southwestern Vermont that doesn't have a major impairment for nutrient pollution in the state of Vermont. And not only is it pervasive and all across the state, but it's a problem that takes time to address. It means that we have to address all those sectors that the governor mentioned this morning. We have to talk about how we deal with our roads, how we deal with development, how we deal with our agricultural lands, how we deal with our forested lands. That is a significant and major challenge. And then when you think about what you have to do to actually make progress at a time when development pressure is not decreasing, the state's population in the developed areas of the state are going to continue to grow. So how do we fold into our plans the ability to offset that new development and what happens when you create new development and water runs off it, it erodes soil and it carries the nutrients bound to that soil into receiving waters. We have to take that into account in our plan. We have to take into account that the climate is changing, that the climate is wetter, that there are more heavy precipitation events now than there were 20 years ago, 50 years, 100 years ago, which means that has to be part of what we do as we look ahead. So we're looking across the state, we're looking backwards and forwards, and it is a fight that I want you guys all to be ready to take on, not just this year or next year, or maybe even in our own lifetimes, but to pass this on to your kids and your grandkids, because we need to be committed to this on into the future for 40, 60, 100 years. That's my first point. Second thing I want to tell you, though, is I want to honor and I want to reiterate what Secretary Ross said, that the conversation has changed. In Vermont right now, it's not just that we have these partnerships that didn't exist before this administration. It's not just that we have this tremendous congressional delegation that's doing fundraising at an unprecedented rate for clean water. But when we have the conversation with people out there, they are getting it in ways that didn't happen before. And I'll just give you an example of that. Earlier this winter, I was up in Swanton talking to a group of farmers and business leaders up there about the clean water plan. And I was being sort of boring deputy secretary and started to talk about the detail by detail presentation that we sent to EPA last May. And people raised their hands and they said, wait a minute, we've had plans before, what's different? And isn't this going to take a long time? And isn't it going to cost a lot of money? I said, well, all right, so you guys want to have a frank conversation. Yes, it is going to cost a lot of money. Yes, it is going to take a long time. And even yes, we're not sure how we can, what the ultimate success is going to be and how to measure it, other than, we know we have to meet the water quality standards, and we're aiming for that, but how do we get there? Are we going to get there? And you'd think that that's not a message that people are really going to appreciate when you say, hey, it's going to cost more than you thought, it's going to take longer than you thought, and boy, we're doing our best to make sure it's successful, but it's even there. we have to stay focused or else it won't be successful. And instead of, chasing me out of the room, when I finished, the people stood up and applauded. I couldn't believe it. This is a group of farmers and businesses who are going to be affected by this, and they were ready for that challenge. And so, not only do you need to know, that was point number 2, but to go back, number 1, go out and tell people we need to be committed for a long time. But also go out and tell them that the conversation has changed and we're all in this together. Vermonters want to know that we're in this with them and that we're willing to build those bridges, that we're not going to point the fingers anymore, and that we're going to pull together on this and we're going to do it for that commitment. So lastly, the last thing I want to tell you this morning is that this is, I think it's an important thing to remind people, what do you get at the end? I mentioned the water quality standards. Well, sure, we're aiming to have Vermont's waters meet those chemical and biological standards for the amount of phosphorus or dissolved oxygen or turbidity in our waters. That's really important. But what we're really in this for, we're in this for our economy. Vermont's economy depends on tourism, it depends on recreation, it depends on real estate land base. And if we don't have clean water, our economy will suffer. It'll suffer today, it'll suffer in the medium term, and it will suffer in the long term. We're in this for health. Not only does Lake Champlain feed drinking water to people across the basin, but a lot of our surface waters are drinking water sources. Our surface waters provide a healthy recreational place for people to go. The psychological importance of that can't be underscored enough, I don't think. And to live on the banks of a lake or a river that's polluted and that has the kind of stench or problems that Secretary Ross described is simply not good for the well-being of Vermonters. So for our economy, for our health, for the health of our ecosystems, you know that the Department of Environmental Conservation is very much behind this plan. But the Department of Fish and Wildlife also stands behind this plan because it's good for the flora and fauna of Vermont. The Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation stands behind it because it's good, because healthy forests are part of this. And so it's the natural communities that people love about Vermont are very much tied to a clean water solution. And finally, it's, if nothing else, you recognize the true beauty of being on a clean body of water, of being able to be out there in a canoe or on a paddle boat, a paddle board, a motorboat, and be able to sit back and enjoy a pristine place, to restore yourself, to find a moment of peace, and to reflect on how it is that we came out of this beautiful natural environment that we all love, and be able to find that solace in your life is fundamental to the way that we live in Vermont. And if we don't get this right, we will lose that too. So thanks very much, you all.
Stand up and shake out, or if you've been standing, you can run and steal from a seat maybe. Let's take a quick break, and then what we'll come back for are a few more minutes on kind of top-line messages of where we're going from here, what kind of message we hope we will deliver to legislators, and how you can stay engaged after you leave today. So be back in your seats in 2 to 3 minutes. Let's just do a quick break. We'll get the program over.